All right, guys, we want to go ahead and jump on in and get started, if that's okay with y'all.
Yes.
All right. Great to see everybody today. Really, this setup is interesting. I hope you guys are comfortable. It's kind of cool to do it with this session, or this lesson, because sometimes we get kind of like in the motion, we get stuck in like patterns and routines, and every now and then you shake things up and kind of change up your sitting and your routine, kind of create some interesting dynamics. People are sometimes more engaged, more attentive, so it's kind of cool. So, as a reminder for kind of this series, we've been kind of jumping all over the place, right? We've been telling or reading these stories that are some of my favorites, and oftentimes they're stories that we've known for a long time. Stories we heard as children, maybe young Christians, we heard them, but they're pretty well-known stories. And the point of this series was really to look into those stories again and see if we can really pull out some things that we can relate to now that we're going through, and find some applications and really bring it to life. Help it become more of a story, and really dive in, put ourselves in that situation. So again, that's kind of been the purpose of this series so far. And I know a lot of people say this when they teach and when they preach, but this is especially true for me. I'm one of those people, anytime I talk on something or I speak on whatever, 9 times out of 10, this is something that I really needed to hear, right? This is something I struggle with, have struggled with, and I'm going to continue to struggle with. And so this is not me saying, hey, I got this figured out, take this is what's going to work for you, but rather this is the journey I'm on, and I hope that you guys can take some stuff from this and really use it in your journey as well, all right? So I just want to put that out there again. All right, so there is a human desire that we all have, and it's this desire to fit in, this desire to be accepted, right? Everyone has that. There's this feeling inside that really drives a lot of things that we do. There's a interesting thing that our motivations are really what push us to do and act the way we do. And needing to fit in, needing to be accepted, wanting to blend in is one of those things that really it's a powerful motivator. This is something that's been studied by a lot of psychologists and social psychologists, and it's been really fascinating to me. And the story that we're going to get into today, I think, has some components that I find really interesting, kind of from that perspective. There's a Netflix show or movie. I don't think it's a Netflix original, but anyways, it's called The Push. Has anyone seen The Push?
Is it that where you can move things?
It's not. No, it's not that one. No. I think, yeah, Push. But this is The Push. The Push. Yeah. That's not a bad movie, though.
I like it.
Yeah. No, but The Push. So this movie it's a social experiment-based movie, okay? It's a very interesting idea that this person came up with. It's by a guy named Darren, I forget the last name. But he wanted to know if he could get an everyday, normal individual to get to a point that he would murder someone. Pretty intense. He wanted to know if he could get someone to push someone off of the top of a building to their death. Now, this is a social experiment, so of course no one's going to be killed in this experiment. It's set up to the point where this person who would be doing it would believe that it is real, when in fact no one's going to be injured. There's not going to be anyone, at risk. But the whole point of the experiment is, how can you get someone who's a normal, everyday person to do something that is so beyond what any of us think we are capable of doing? He said the point of this is to examine how readily we hand over authorship of our lives every day due to social compliance. Now, I really, really recommend you check out this movie. I think it's fascinating because you can see step by step the compromises this individual takes on the path to get to a place that he never expected he would get to. The social things that are at play are so powerful, and at times we're not aware until we get to the very end and we're like, how did I get here? It's fascinating to me. That has been something I've been really interested in. There's a man named Solomon Osk who did some conformity experiments, social things, and he did some really silly ones that really is like, come on, people really fell for that. There was an elevator experiment where a group of individuals, they were in on the experiment, they would go into an elevator, it's only one door, they'd go in and they'd face the wall, and they'd all stand and face the wall. An individual who is not part of the experiment would come in, step into the elevator, and normally you stand waiting for the elevator to open. But he'd see all these individuals facing the wall. So what did he do? He faced the wall. Knowing full well, why are they facing the wall? The door, but okay, I'm going to do this. Why did he do that? Why would an individual come in, sit, face the wall, knowing I'm going to turn around and go out this way?
He didn't want to look different.
Didn't want to look different. Yeah, it's definitely part of it.
You're in a little box with people you don't know that you're scared of for a minute, kind of stuck with them. Maybe you're a little frightened.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a fear like, I don't know what's going on here. I'm just going to kind of roll with it because I don't know what's going to happen.
There must be a logical reason why everybody is so, if they know something I don't know, so I'm going to follow because they must know something I don't know.
Yeah, that's a great point. They have to know something. Maybe I'm missing something. I'm going to roll with this because there's got to be something else going on. Yeah.
There's nothing negative about it, so you've got to lose, right? Just do it, and there's nothing bad.
Yeah.
In the world.
What could be the harm, right? I might as well play this safe, see how it goes. They did another experiment where they placed some lines on a board, right? Like one line, a longer line, and a smaller line. And they had people set up like you are right now. And most of the people were in on the experiment. And they asked the question and said, can you point to the longest line? Or can you tell us which line is the longest line? The middle one's the longest line. They went down the row, every single person picked the shortest line as the longest line. It got down to the last 2 or 3 people who were not in on the experiment, and they said, which one's the longest line? And they picked the shortest line. Once again. What they learned from these experiments is that people conform because they didn't want to appear peculiar. They didn't want to be ridiculed for being wrong, potentially. And some people actually believed that what they thought was the truth was wrong. They actually thought that the thing that they knew for certain beforehand, maybe this is not it. Maybe I actually have it wrong. It's fascinating, these social components that are at play. Our story today takes place in Daniel chapter 3. This is the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Now, when Donald Ballard talks about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, he uses their real name, and I love that, but it's hardwired in my brain to say Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, so that's what I'm going with. But I do appreciate his intent in that. All right, so Daniel chapter 3, and we got King Nebuchadnezzar here, and he's decided to start a project. We'll start in verse 1 of Daniel chapter 3. It says, King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold whose height was 60 cubits and its breadth 6 cubits. And he set it up in the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. So he created this giant image. And 60 cubits I looked up, that's like, if I was going for Halloween as this, it'd be like 15 me's stacked on top of each other. That's kind of where we're at. So it's pretty tall, pretty big, shiny. At that time, that's got to be impressive, right? And so he sent, in verse 2, the king Nebuchadnezzar sent to gather all these important people, the satraps, the prefects, the governors, the counselors, the treasurers, the justices, the magistrates, and all the officials to the provinces to come to the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Get everybody important. Come check this out. This is a big deal. I need everyone on board. Come check what I've done. And so they get there, and the herald proclaimed aloud in verse 4, "You are commanded, O peoples, nations, and languages, that when you hear the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipe, and every kind of music, you're to fall down, worship the golden image that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. And whoever does not fall down and worship shall immediately be cast into a burning fiery furnace." Therefore, as soon as all the people heard the sound of all this music, all the peoples, nations, and languages fell down and worshipped the image that he had set up. So, what we see here is the creation of a giant idol. And we see the terms of the worship desired for this idol also instituted in this moment. And we see the compliance start to happen. In verse 7, it talked about everyone falling down and worshiping, right? Now, we know in this situation in Babylon, this is someone that they recently conquered and took Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and these people into captivity, right? They have them. So they're in a whole different place. You gotta keep that in mind. So, verses 8 through 12. Therefore, at that time, certain Chaldeans came forward and maliciously accused the Jews. They declared to King Nebuchadnezzar, "O king, live forever. You, O king, have made a decree that every man who hears the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipe, and every kind of music shall fall down and worship the golden image. And whoever does not fall down and worship shall be cast into a burning fiery furnace. Now, there are certain Jews whom you have appointed over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, pay no attention to you. They do not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up." Okay, so right here we've got these important people that King Nebuchadnezzar had. These are his people. These are the ones he wanted to really show off, institute all this stuff. They come to him and we say they've got an agenda. And they start using this agenda to really manipulate the king, get him hyped to do this thing. Why do you think that these important people would have this agenda towards these Chaldeans, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Jealous? Prejudice?
I know politics, they stood in the way of what these people wanted to do.
Stood in the way, yeah. Absolutely. So if we look actually at chapter 1, we actually see that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, this isn't our first time we're hearing about them. Chapter 1, there's a situation, right? What was going on in chapter 1 that Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were involved in? The food.
Yeah.
They wanted to eat some good food. And the king wanted them to have some bad stuff. That's kind of a simplified version, right? And they basically, Daniel's like, listen, you give us this time to do what we feel like is good for us and what we know is right for us, and you kind of see where it goes. And the king listened. So Daniel kind of had this little experiment that he did to show the king, the merit of what he knew was right. And based off of how well it worked out, because the king saw, oh man, wow, this is no joke. They were right. He actually elevated these individuals to higher places, ruling parts of what was going on. I don't know about you, but I I feel like that's got to sit pretty badly with some of these important people, to see these lower individuals be raised up and have favor with the king. I don't know. I think that is definitely at play. The politics of seeing someone else gain some power, gain some influence, and that's got to sit wrong. So there's a plan. They see their opportunity. They have an agenda. And we know, like Dwight said, if you know politics, that happens today. People have agendas. This stuff still goes on. It was going on then. It goes on now. But verse 13 to 18. I'm not gonna read it all. But what we see is Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did not bow down, right? And they were confronted. The king heard. He was mad. He had gotten riled up by his important people. And he's like, bring him in. Let's talk to him. I got to ask, why did the three not just pretend? Why didn't they bow down? I mean, they didn't have to really believe it in their heart, right? They could have bowed down and just gone with the flow. Why didn't they?
When you are truly convicted of something, you will refuse to break that conviction.
True conviction will not break when you truly believe it.
In the beginning, they purposed in their heart that they would stay too young. It was a decision.
Yeah, I love that. It was a decision they made beforehand, not a reaction to what was going on. A pre-purposed decision in their heart. I love that.
They were loyal to God. They loved him, and they didn't want to betray him and disappoint him.
Yeah, they were loyal. They didn't want to disappoint God. This is something that they knew God would want. Yeah. What do you think really motivated them? What was their purpose and motivation at that time?
Be pleasing to God.
Yeah, being pleasing to God.
I think they had a missional thought about it too. I mean, especially with the situation with the table, like it was a way for them to demonstrate, like, look, you can be successful and not be engaged in these other things. Like you can grow and be strong and not eat the things that you think that you need to eat that defile us. And then for them, like eventually when we get to the furnace, they're going to talk about how, like, look, God is going to be demonstrated here. You know, and even if he's not, you know, and they go on and explain that, but it's a way for them to walk and say, look, this is God walking with us. You know,
Yeah.
give honor to God.
Yeah, I love that. Is a platform to show another way, to demonstrate God in that time. It's not completely about them. It's about more than just them. It wasn't just about them in that moment. Yes.
Verse 17 says, our God whom we serve. So they understand that they're serving God and not the king.
Right? Yeah, they made a stance. They said, our God who we serve. Not lowercase g, our uppercase G God who we serve. Yeah. There was obviously some consequences that were coming. Was this a surprise to them? Did they think, I don't know what's going to happen, but we should do this? No, this was not a surprise. He clearly outlined the consequences of not following with this, right? I put myself in those shoes. I'm in a whole other land. This is not my home. This is people who took me. They gave me new names. There's a whole new culture going on. And everyone's following these rules and knowing if you don't, you will die. That level of social pressure, it had to be so great, so powerful. I have not experienced that level of social pressure. I haven't. But what was even more powerful is Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego's desire to see God's plan come to fruition. They had a mission, and they wanted to show God in that time. It was more powerful than the desire to just fit in, blend in, self-preserve ourselves that we so often do, right? I think that's so powerful and so awesome. And so we do see that they are thrown into this furnace. And let's go to verse 19, and we'll just kind of read that quickly. Then Nebuchadnezzar was filled with fury, and the expression of his face changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He ordered the furnace heated 7 times more than it was usually heated. He ordered some of the mighty men of his army to bind them and cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Then these men were bound in their cloaks, their tunics, their hats, and their other garments. They were thrown into the burning fiery furnace. Because the king's order was urgent, the furnace was overheated. The flame of the fire killed those men who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell bound in the burning fiery furnace. They faced the consequence. It happened. They were thrown in. Even to that point, they did not break. They did not change from their plan. They stuck it out all the way through. They did not make compromises. And what do we see? Verse 24. Then King Nebuchadnezzar was astonished, rose up in haste, and he declared to his counselors, "Did we not cast 3 men bound into the fire?" And they answered and said, "True, O king." He answered and said, "But I see 4 men unbound, walking in the midst of the fire, and they're not hurt, and the appearance of the 4th is like a son of the gods." Man, that would have been such a powerful moment to see. That's straight out of a movie, guys. But it's not a movie. That happened. Man, what an awesome moment. Just to be like, hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hey, how many we throw in there? 4? I don't know. That's mind-blowing. And what do we see? Because of that, because God was there in that moment with them, we see the payoff. Verse 26 through 30, Nebuchadnezzar brought them out, and he's already made up his mind. Something has happened. Something has changed because of what's been going on. And this really isn't the point that I'm trying to get in the story, but there was some punishment, right? It was switched up. Things got reversed. And the king had a complete switch in his heart. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they didn't do anything so radical. They didn't go out of their way to make this happen. They stayed with the plan that they had set, which is serve God. And because of that, that brought them to this point. They didn't tell Nebuchadnezzar, "Hey, you got to change this stuff. You got to do this." It just happened naturally because they were following their heart. They were following the path. And because of that, Nebuchadnezzar changes his mind on this whole concept. He then starts speaking about God. God is seen in this moment. Transitions are happening. I think that's really important to identify, though, that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, all they did is what was in their control, in their power, in their ability. Standing up, doing the right thing. They stayed authentic and genuine in the areas that they really believed in, because any compromise would have impacted their heart, impacted what they really believed in. And so I ask you, when you look at where you're at now, your younger self, do you think that they would be surprised to see where you're at? Maybe that's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing, I don't know. For me, when I think about where I'm at now, I think my younger self would be disappointed. And I say that because in my life, I've made a lot of compromises. And I've done a lot of blending in. and I think about all the time that I've wasted and all the things I could have done, that's one of my regrets. I've talked about regrets in the past, but that's one of my regrets, that I've really wasted and compromised so much because I wanted to just fit in. And I think of the things that I put ahead of God, and I wasn't genuine, I wasn't authentic. I recently had something that really shocked me. It happened when I was in a therapy session, right? And I had a young kid, and he loves video games, okay? Loves video games. And he wanted to tell me how much he'd played one of his video games. So he went online and he looked at the hours played. And when he told me, I was just like, wow, that is a lot of video. That's a lot of time, man. And he was so pleased. That was what he wanted. He wanted me to be surprised that he had, played this much time, put this much effort into it. And, I was willing to do that, but also I was like, that is a lot of time, man. And he put like 365 days worth of YouTube over the time that he had his Nintendo Switch, right? And that just blew my mind. I was like, how in the world? It got me thinking, though. I was like, I wonder how much time I put in on my gaming system, right? So I, powered it up, checked it out, and I just stared at it. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. I had more hours than this kid did on his. Not the YouTube, not the 365, but just the video games. I was just blown away at the amount of time I had put in these things. I had never looked at that. Never. Blown away. And it brought me back to thinking of all the things that I have placed my effort in, put my time in, compromised just to fit in, just to keep going.
Did you tell him and go, yeah, look?
I didn't. He wanted me to tell him, and I was like, oh man, no, you got a lot of hours. I don't want to tell you mine. Yeah. But it made me realize that I have let so many things get in the way. So many things. And I could be so much farther, doing so much more. And I could leave it at that. I could say, I have these regrets. Man, if only I'd done that. But that's not what we're supposed to do. And that's so often where we stop. Looking back at what we've done and what we could have done. But the question is, what is going on right now? What is going on right now that is in the way for you? What are these compromises and these idols that you're putting time in? I said in one of my past lessons that, Satan, he doesn't care about, he doesn't care if you really love God and you put God up high, as long as God is maybe second, or maybe 1B even. As long as something's competing right above God or with God. Satan's like, that's ideal. Because in your head, you can tell yourself, oh, I'm doing good, I did this. But inside your heart, you know. You guys know. I know. And that's what I love about this story is Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they did not compromise. There was such conviction. The social pressures didn't get to them. This idea to blend in, just fit in, did not get to them. They were committed.
And they were willing to sacrifice their leadership role also. Like they had been placed in high positions, and those positions didn't matter to them either.
That's an excellent point. The people in this story were so entranced with their power that they wanted to get people out of power so they could keep their power or rise up. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are like, this came, this might leave. Maybe I'll go up. I don't know. But I do know one thing. God's got the plan. And if I'm riding with him, I'm going to like where I'm at. Right? So my question for you is, what are barriers in your life? And I actually do want answers. What are the barriers in your life that are keeping you from standing out or doing the things that you know you should?
Procrastinate horribly. And I'm quite lazy as well. So not a real great combination to be a lazy procrastinator. I'm actually being lazy at procrastinating at what I'm supposed to be doing. So I'll just sit there. I to sit there and go, wow, I can do it tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow, but you know what, it's not got to be done until next week. So I'm awful with that.
Yeah, it's such
And
a
I
cycle.
end up being reactionary because I have tomorrow to get it done. I'm like, oh my gosh, I gotta freak out and get it done. And then I wonder if it's substandard. I could have done better had I started sooner, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The answer to that is, no, we don't till tomorrow, what you can do today.
Why do today when she can put up with tomorrow? So yeah, that just gave you a level of insight about psychosis actually.
I definitely relate to what you said. I told you, I really grew up in the church. So from a young age, I was really in there. Bible bowls, everything. I knew a lot. I had a great foundation. And we had people who came in, speakers, and they would come up and they would talk about how they didn't find the Bible until they were in their 30s or 40s. And that's when they really got serious. And I would look at them and be like, wow, they know a lot, but they didn't start till they're 30 or 50 or 40 or 50. And I'm like, I got such a head start on them. Like, I'm good. I can kind of coast a little bit. If they started at that point and they got all that, I'm okay. I don't have to, go too hard. And I really allowed myself to get in that mindset of, I can push this off a little bit. I'm in a great position. I'm okay. And that rationalization that we do in our heads, that we all do, oh man, it's powerful. And it's blinding to the truth. Some of the lessons that I really wanted to pull out from this for your consideration. Number one, standing out. That idea of sticking out, being different. It is one of the most powerful, greatest tools that we have as Christians. That's built into the fabric of Christianity. And it can be really scary. It can be really scary. Because when we stick out, that might mean we have to do something. It might mean we have to actually talk or act. And that's scary. But the truth is, that's exactly what Jesus did. Jesus' ministry is a as-you-go ministry, right? Where everywhere he went, he stuck out. Jesus did not blend in at all. And he used that to create conversations, to impact change in powerful ways. If Jesus had blended in, he would have been really cheating people of seeing God. Jesus didn't do that. But how often do I do that? How often do I cheat people out of seeing what they need to see because I didn't stand out? I took that back seat. Even though I knew what was right, I saw all these answers that were wrong. And I just thought, maybe I am wrong. Or maybe I don't want to get ridiculed. Maybe I don't want to stand out.
So I can say for me, as we've been talking about this, I think about what are my Nebuchadnezzars? What are my Babylons right now? And right now I'm working through a period of my life where I'm trying to stand out, I'm trying to be different, and do what I'm convicted of, but I wasn't ready for the furnaces that were built by the Christians. And I'm more anxious about what they're going to say. And even though I know I'm going to be okay, I don't know if I'm ready to be pushed in.
Yeah, appreciate that, Logan. That's really powerful to me because I think that's really real in the fact that, this isn't just about people outside of the church. We are humans here in the church. We are imperfect people in this place. And the reality is things are not as easy as it sounds sometimes. Things are way more difficult. And guys, what the thing that really should be at the center of all this, that helps drive this, is love, right? And when we don't involve love in the things that we do, in the way that we act, and how we look and see people, we really start missing the point. We start missing that message. And people can feel when love's not involved. I don't know. At least I can. When there's not true love in a message, when there's not real intent, and it's just kind of thrown out there, it's autopilot, it's whatever, you can feel it. And when love's really in there, oh, you can feel it even more. And it is powerful, and it's the thing that really slices through difficulties and those conflicts. Appreciate you bringing that up, Logan.
I just think a very valuable thing is they were 3 friends. They chose good friends. And sometimes it's harder to be an island, and here's 3 who totally hold it together.
Yeah. Deb, that's a great point, because one of the things, when we talked about the man Solomon Osk, who created those social experiments, one of the things that he found that was a reason for people to break these social pressures is having someone else who will be there to stand up, say something else. It only took one person, he found, in his experiments to be like, hold on, that's not, are we sure? And then people started really falling in line, being like, yeah, hey, because they were feeling it, they were thinking it, they were looking for it. Having someone else there with you is important.
There's a movie, it's old, 12 Angry Men or something like that. Is that the name of it? Y'all know what I'm talking about? It was the jury thing. And one guy would not give in to the idea that the guy had proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that he was guilty. It's a very old movie. It's a really good movie, though.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't give up. He's like, I have some questions. All 11 of the others were ready to find him guilty. And as they began to kind of, a couple more started listening, and then next thing you know, and they began to tear the case apart. And they found that he was innocent. The guy was innocent. But initially, because the foreman and a few well on, except for him. It's a great concept to be the fly in the ointment.
Yeah. There's so much at stake in that case. And one person was able to do the right thing and change that.
It's rare.
It's rare. Yeah. There's so much at stake in our lives. For us, for those around us. And maybe we're the person who needs to be that person who shouts out and be the first one. Because there's got to be someone. For sake of time, I won't get into it, but there's another social psychology concept called the bystander effect. I don't know if you guys have heard that. And there's the case of Kitty Genovese. It's a really, really crazy story. If you all want to hear it, I can talk to you about it later, or you can look it up for yourself. But it's a situation where people, they stand back because there's other people around, and they think someone else will help. That's the gist of it. Someone else is going to do something.
I'm reminded of a story like that. It's not the guy that gets up and on the dance floor first, it's the second guy that's the bravest. Because the guy getting up, everybody's like, yeah, look at that weirdo. But the guy that gets up and dances with him was the one that was willing to stand out even more. That's the idea. That he was ready to back this guy up. The fact that he's ready to back up the idea makes him even braver.
Wow.
Because the ridicule would come down on the second guy more like the first guy. Does that make sense?
It does.
It was a pretty neat idea, but I think it follows that idea.
Yeah, I love that. I love that thought. It's important. The other thing I really wanted to point out is that prioritizing what we worship is vital in our daily walk. The truth is, God made us to be individuals of worship. We worship something at all times. That's not an opinion. you are constantly worshiping something. And there's a idea that you become what you worship. That is so important to know, because if you are not worshiping God, what are you worshiping? Do you know? Do you know what in your life is that thing that really is a stumbling block, a barrier that you are falling into, that you are worshiping? And once you identify it, what is it doing for you? What are you turning into? What is it giving you? In the Bible, it says in Psalms 115, I think it's verse 8, it says that, they worship these things and they became nothing, because they are nothing. Vanity, like Solomon would say. It's important to know what you're worshiping, because that's who you're becoming. That's what you're turning into. And I would love to spend more time, maybe another lesson we'll kind of explore that more, because I think that's such a powerful idea to think about. But the truth is, guys, my challenge for you is to be different. Embrace looking different, standing out. If you're scared, that's okay. That isn't part of it. It is okay to be scared. If you don't feel ready, get ready. Start that journey. You don't have to be a finished product, but you got to start changing and making those changes. We all know what those things in our life that are in the way. Those things that help us blend in, that compromises we make. Explore those for yourself, because those are things that are getting in the way from your relationship with God. And we see what happens when we let God take control of our life fully. The impact it has on the other individuals in our lives, and the impact it has on us. So that's the lesson for today. Any thoughts? Any questions? All right, let me close this out in prayer. Heavenly Father, so grateful for another beautiful day, another chance that we can worship you in spirit and in truth. And so grateful that we're able to come together and just talk and meditate on things that are important, things that are worthwhile. Lord, I pray that we can humble ourselves in those areas that we know that we're not where we need to be, and we can make those changes, and also just encourage one another along that journey, as we know it's so difficult and so scary, but the strength that you give, Lord, we know is more powerful and stronger. We love you so much. Please keep us safe. It's in Christ we pray. Amen.